Hey folks, it's Julie B here back with my weekly update. Hopefully, this week I won't have any TECH problems. I'm not even going to say the word. Last week was crazy and I wasn't able to go live. Um, so I have a story today about that one time I lost to Viola Davis. If you don't know who Viola Davis is, you can Google her. She's a very, very, very famous actress and a very good actress at that. So, award-winning actress, all of these wonderful things, right? So, let me tell you the backstory about this a little bit. Um, I don't know, maybe back in April. Okay, so we're in December right now. So back in April, we were looking at places to enter the podcast. They don't teach this in business school. That's my podcast that I do every week. We were looking for places to enter that into awards. And if you're not familiar with business awards, it's kind of I don't want to minimize winning, so I don't want to um minimize the awarding bodies, but it's a little bit of a racket, to be perfectly honest. You have to, for most of the awards, you do have to pay to enter, and you may or may not win, and that's just part of the game. That's just part of the deal. And if you do win, you have to pay to get your statue, or as you can see behind me, like I have a few awards. I paid to enter those, and then you also pay to get that. So I have a little bit of a complicated relationship with awards, anyways, but that's a different story. So, just inside the mind of a business owner, right? That's kind of the theme that we're going with here. And so, let me tell you about that one time I lost to Viola Davis. So, back in April, my team and I were talking about what awards to submit to. And we have won awards already this season, so that's fantastic. But there was a new awarding body that came across our plate, and it's the first year for the awards, but the awards are completely 100% all about podcasts. So we thought, based on some of the other awards that we've won in the past, we thought, why not? Like, let's go ahead and submit to this awarding body and we may win. So here's the funny story. So we submitted in April. And that's the other thing is it takes forever for some of these awarding bodies to so you submit, and then it's months and months and months and months before you actually know if you won. And so we submitted in April or May, or maybe it was even June. I don't know. We submitted to this awarding body, and this week, yesterday or the day before, uh, I got an email letting me know that unfortunately we were not selected as a finalist. And I was kind of disappointed, but also like, when I don't win something, I wanna know immediately who I was up against, right? So, um, I wanna know who did win because I am competitive, but I also recognize, like, while I do talk about swinging for the fences, sometimes you gotta make sure you're in the right ballpark first before you actually do, or you're playing the right sport. So, I went to see who the finalists in our category actually were, and the very first one was a podcast interview with Viola Davis, and so as soon as I saw that, I was like, "Okay, we we weren't even in the same, like, state." Um, and then a couple of the other ones, another one was an HBO Max podcast, and another one was an NPR, National Public Radio podcast. So, here I am having no freaking idea what kind of podcasts are being submitted to this because, again, it's the first year, so there's nothing to look back at. And realizing I was competing against these individuals, which I guess, like I told my team, if we're going to go for awards, there is something to be said for winning awards. I am very proud that we have won awards. I'm very proud that I can now say that I am an award winning podcast host and that I've had 3 award winning podcasts just in general. But um, it, I don't know. Like, it's just funny that I thought we all thought we had a shot. Like, that was part of the thing was this is the first year. So let's get our podcast in this and maybe we'll actually win something on this one. And instead, it was they say that over 1,700 podcasts were submitted, and apparently podcasts like ones with Viola Davis on it. I mean, I'm talking probably the biggest names in podcasting are up for finalists. They haven't even announced the award yet. So the winners will be announced next month in January. Isn't that crazy? They start requesting submissions in April, and it's January of the following year before people actually know if they won or not, which is just like it just seems like a forever amount of time to wait to win to see if you win an award. But I guess that's how it is. Um, Maybe I should start an award. Huh. Mm, See, this is why I call this. I'm getting a little theme here of that one time I did something, but it's not so much as behind the scenes. It's more of inside the mind of a business owner and specifically my mind. These are the things that come up and I think about. I'm like, huh, maybe we should start an award that people can win. That's probably a squirrel, but that's gonna go on my list. Anyways, so I lost to Viola Davis in this on this podcast award platform thing, and, I'm not I just think it's funny. I she deserves I think she probably deserves every single award she wins, and I hope she wins. I hope she wins. She's not even the winner officially yet, but I know that I at least lost to her and an HBO podcast series and an NPR podcast series, so I'm not feeling, too bad. So, I guess my point here is I just, there are awards as a business owner you submit for that you know you're gonna win. There are awards you submit for that you know you have a fair chance of winning. And then there are awards that you probably have no freaking idea or maybe don't even hope to win, but you're just doing it to go through the process. And I think that's what happened here, but I didn't know that at the beginning. So I guess the lesson learned is I don't really know. Like just keep submitting. Don't stop trying because you're not going to win if you don't submit basically. So we'll continue to try to win awards for things, but I just I just if you're going to losing to Viola Davis is not the worst thing. There are far worse things that could be happening right now. So, that's kind of my, like, thing for this week. Oh, and, my paper problem has remained under control. Last week's video was all about my freaking paper problem. I still haven't put all those notes that I have into something, but I have figured it out. Not only is my paper problem resolved, I now have a place to take one place to take notes. So I started it's a Word document right now that I can access on my phone too, and I call it Desk Notes. And I'm taking all of the things that pop up into my head. They're going into this Word document. And I can't tell you how relieving it is to have one place to put notes. And also, my desk is still clean. It's still clean. That's freaking amazing. Again, back to what I said last week, I needed to take tools out of my toolkit. I have kept writing utensils off of my desk, and it is working. I cannot believe how well it's working. We'll see how well it works tomorrow because I have a podcast interview that I'm doing, and I usually take handwritten notes while I do the podcast interview. I think that's going to be hard for me. I don't know what I'm going to do there because I usually take handwritten notes. And I can't really type notes while I'm doing a podcast because it would be too noisy. So I'll figure it out. But anyways, I'm just excited that like I figured something out and I stuck with it. So yay. Um, Last week I did allude to in this week's episode, I was going to talk about what happens when Google doesn't have the answer for something. I'm dealing with some things with my family right now. It's a long story, but and I don't want to get into like the details of it. But this week has been even harder. And, once again, Google doesn't have the answer. But I had this thought today about vulnerability and how hard it is for people to be vulnerable, to ask for help. And I wonder if, like 30, 40 years ago, if people had the same problem, or if this is a condition of us being able to typically go to Google and get answers. And when we can't get an answer from Google, we feel like well, the answer must not be out there, or nobody else is gonna be able to help us, so we were not vulnerable enough to, like, actually ask for help from human beings or professionals, or yeah, I mean, they're all human beings, but from, like, real people or organizations. I just wonder, because I see it in business, I see it with business owners, I see it with myself, like, I am a rare breed in that, maybe not that rare. I'm not that special, but I am a little bit I am a little bit special. When it comes to vulnerability, when it comes to talking about my feelings publicly in forums like this, about business and about the challenges of business and the feelings that come along with that. I'm pretty open book about most things, pretty vulnerable with most, when I need help, I'm willing to be vulnerable. But I started to think, and I don't have an answer for when Google doesn't have the answer. I think that talking to other people about your problem or whatever is going on is where you start when Google doesn't have like the immediate answer. But I started to think like people aren't openly, willingly, they're not, they aren't often willing to do that because of the vulnerability it requires. And if they're not willing to do that, then do they ever get the answer? And is the reason they're not willing to be vulnerable is because we've all been trained to go to Google. And I mean, I tell people to go to Google all the time. To Google it. That's like when you don't know the answer to something, that's what you do in our world, or whatever search, it may not be Google, but whatever search network you use, you go and you Google it. And I just wonder that if our, what I would call it is probably decreasing willingness to be vulnerable, or increasing defensiveness maybe, um, has to do with Google and whether or not we get answers there. And heck, maybe even that's why we have a harder time. Holy cat! See, this is the thing. This is what happens with me. I'm gonna wrap this up because I have an idea in my brain that I want to explore a little bit more. Welcome to Inside the Mind of a Business Owner. Although, is this about business or is this more philosophy? I don't know. Anyways, whatever. It doesn't really matter. I think all business owners have a propensity to be kind of lay philosophers. But the question I'm now thinking about is, I started off with, well, the Viola Davis story. I mean, it's just fun, right? Like, that's just fun. And I'm vulnerable enough to share with you that I lost an award that I thought I would win. Yay. But the other thing that I wanted to follow up on from last week was this whole, like, what happens when Google doesn't have the answer? But now what I'm thinking is, I've talked before in my podcast about how it seems we've really lost the ability to have respectful disagreements, and instead it tends to get defensive and offensive, our opinion is right, your opinion is wrong kind of stuff. And I wonder if Google plays into that too, because I know I've certainly had conversations with people, and the next thing you know, I get like 10 emails that supports their opinion, and I could equally go to Google and find 10 sources that support my opinion. Just because it's on Google, even if it's an opinion piece, doesn't mean it's right, obviously. I mean, I hope we all know that. But man, like, I guess I wish people would just look at the other side of things. I when I get those emails from, usually it's my family, um, I do try to read some of the things that are sent, and I withhold my initial knee-jerk reaction, which is to respond and defend with stuff that proves my point, right? But I wouldn't have a lot of that stuff if it wasn't for Google. So, not only do I think maybe Google lowers our ability to be vulnerable and ask for help, because if it's not answered by Google, we probably think there's not an answer out there, or we're not willing to publicly or even, um, admit to one other person we need help. Dang, does Google lead to kind of the defensiveness? I mean, I think the answer to both of those, I think, is yes. So that's a big that's a big question. I was not anticipating getting here when I started this about Viola Davis. And Viola Davis, if you're listening, if you watch this, um, I mean, I doubt you're gonna watch this, but if you do, first of all, congratulations. Second of all, I hope you win in our category. And third of all, if you have the answer to these philosophical questions or wanna, have your input into it, let me know. So, I'm gonna wrap it up here for the week. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being inside my mind with me as I think through some of the bigger topics, um, that I grapple with as a business owner, and also the humor of sometimes you just gotta laugh. That's the real. So make sure you subscribe to my channel. Make sure you subscribe to my email. We're going through a process where we're changing that up a little bit. It's gonna have more information in it each week. Um, and I'm actually thinking about scaling back on some of my other social platforms, focusing on YouTube and focusing on email. So these might be the only two platforms where you really get like to see the real me, I would say. Not the headshot me or not the edited me. This is all real, all live, all the time. So if you want that. And again, the email is a lot more concise and succinct. So you're not going to need 16 minutes to read my email. I promise you that. All right, folks, have a good rest of your week. It is Thursday, and I will be back next week with some more inside the mind of a business owner. Thanks.